Okay, Chevra, Bezat Hashem, today in Masechet Shabbat, we're learning Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. We're going to start, it's about 10-12 lines from the top of the page, at Tashma. We're going to have two sugyot, two sections today. The first section, we're going to have a few more proofs to the question we left off yesterday. If our Mishnah is like Chachamim or Chananya, which really is if we paskin like which one. And the second section is going to be a separate discussion regarding putting a food near the oven. Not on the oven, but near the oven that didn't have gufa uktuma done. We'll get into that, that'll be the next thing. But before we start, we have to remember where we're holding. We had a Mishnah yesterday with 3 parts, and as we explained yesterday, Chachamim will explain the Mishnah one way, and Chananya will explain the Mishnah a different way. I want to write it out so that we have it in front of us.
Again?
What?
Like yesterday?
Exactly. So as we go through the sugya today, we could attach it to what we know so far, because we're going to have 2 more shitot today, and we're going to have to fit them back in. So, Bezat Hashem, we'll go through it now very briefly. We just want to review this. But just to remember where we're holding. We had a question yesterday. We have a machloket between Chananya and Chachamim. What is the machloket in general? Bichlal. That we know Chazal require gufa uktuma on Shabbat. You said there's different reasons why. It avoids the issue of Shemi Yechateh, Mechsi Kimevashel, different issues, whatever it is. So the Chachamim say, or the Mishnah, the halacha is, do gufa uktuma. So now we have a machloket Tanayim. Chachamim say, in order to do both Shehiyah and Chazara, you need gufa uktuma before Shabbat. Gufa is scraping at the coals. Tuma is covering the coals with cold ashes. It calms down the fire. Chananya says, gufa uktuma is only required, it's only necessary for Chazara, but for Shehiyah, you don't even need gufa uktuma. So we had a question yesterday, does this Mishnah, the beginning of the 3rd parak, follow Chachamim or Chananya? First it seemed like it followed the Chachamim, we said it could fit with Chananya too. L'may nafkamina, the nafkamina is it's a stam Mishnah, means the beginning it says it's a stam Mishnah, then we have machloket Beit Shammai Beit Hillel. But really the question is, who do we paskin like? Because if it's a stam Mishnah, usually we paskin like a stam Mishnah. So if the Mishnah will follow Chananya, we paskin like Chananya. If it follows Chachamim, we paskin like Chachamim. That's really why we're trying to figure out.
It's a Mishnah that can fit either way, wherever it's fitting.
Stam Mishnah means that there's no specific author. There's no Tan in the Mishnah. It doesn't say, Rabbi Yehuda Omer v'chulei. It just says the halacha, and then it says tu machloket Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, which
and
we'll
then
get
we try to figure out who is this Mishnah.
Who is the Mishnah? And once we know who it is, we can say we paskin like that one. So we'll see. So let's just go through 3 parts of the Mishnah now. The first part of the Mishnah, remember, let's just remember outside, what did it say? It said, Lo yiten Adam ala kira, if it's heated, slicha, you're allowed to put on the kira that's heated with kash and gvava, a tavshil. Kash gvava. Mutar lasim hakira it's not mosif hevel. Also we said, according to other Rishonim, it doesn't turn into coal, it just gets burnt up. Different logic fact. But we said in the Mishnah, if you used
Gefet ve'etzim,
tada, which adds heat, it's mosif hevel, and turns into coal, so then asur, unless it's gufa uktuma. Now, before we go ahead, let's plug it in here, okay?
Chachamim is easier way.
But let's do both. Let's do both. Let's put both.
No.
Chachamim, what do they hold? What does it mean, lo yiten? It means for Shehiyah. Let's put that in. Shehiyah
גרוף וכתום.
requires tzarich gufa tuma. Good? That's the Chachamim. Very simple. How does Chananya learn? Well, hold on. How does it let's put it in the Mishnah. Let's put it in the words.
Let's talk about Chazara.
Chazara. For Chazara, that's what lo yiten is time at Chazara. No.
Chazara.
It's time at Chazara. Chananya, hold on, that's the diuk. But hold on. For, what the Mishnah means is for Chazara, what do you need? Gufa uktuma. Tzarich gufa uktuma. Okay? Good? That's one.
Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel.
And then what's on before that? And the diuk of that, says Chananya. Remember, this was the step between 1 and 2. Remember?
Step 2 is Shehiyah.
Let me just put something here. It's like between the lines. That's really what it is. Chananya said, But for Shiyah,
לא צריך גרוף וכתום.
but for Shiyah, לא צריך. לא צריך גופה וכתומה. This was the in between the lines, remember?
Okay.
That's what we said. Okay. Good. So far we have step A. B. Let's go to the next step. Now we have a machloket. The Chachamim hold, again, the words of the Mishnah were, Bet Shammai omrim l'mayim velo letavshil, Bet Hillel omrim afilu letavshil. So what are we talking about? Let's go through it. According to the Chachamim,
שהייה.
for Shihiyah, Ezamin is mutar with grufa uktuma, right?
בית שמאי, מים.
So, Ezamin, oh, sorry, let me just do this good. I want to make sure we have this clear. We have to be very clear. So, Chachamim hold Shihiyah.
Perfect.
Shihiyah. Huh?
Called perfect, I like
Because
it.
you have to be perfect. This is so technical. There's so many details here. It has to be very clear.
Yeah.
For Shiyah, that's what the Chachamim say, with Grufa Uktuma, right? That's what the Chachamim are saying. Im Grufa Uktuma, that's what it needs to be. So when? So Beit Shammai says,
מים.
Rak Mayim. Beit Hillel says,
תבשיל.
Afilu Tavshil. Stop me if you don't understand something. So far, so good, right? Meaning, when can you do Shiyah with Grufa Uktuma? Beit Shammai says only water. Beit Hillel says even a cooked dish, whatever it is. Chananya learns differently though. Remember, he said Shihiyah does not require Grufa Uktuma. And that's where there's a machloket. So, on that, Shihiyah Bli Grufa Uktuma, Bli, without, meaning that's what that's how he understands, right? So he says, when is it mutar?
בית שמאי, מים. בית הלל, תבשיל.
Right? You understand there's a difference there in that step. Everybody
The
sees
whole
that
point, the whole
field.
difference is the שהייה itself. לא צריך או צריך.
No, if it's with or without, if it's with or without Gufa Uktuma.
Same, right. According to Chazara, they both סוברים
We didn't discuss.
need גרוף וכתום.
Right, that we didn't
For
get
בית
to.
הלל.
That's
For
the
בית שמאי, there is no.
That's the third step, the next machloket. But so in this second step, Chachamim hold Grufa Uktuma is needed for Shihiyah, and the machloket is what types of food are you allowed to use, that leniency, that kula. Chananya holds you don't need Grufa Uktuma for Shihiyah. That's what the diuk from the ratio was. You don't need. So Memela, the machloket is you don't have Gufa Uktuma. When is it mutar to do Shihiyah? Beit Shammai says Mayim, Beit Hillel says even Tavshil. By the way, I just want to point something out. That Shammai would agree that if you do have Gufa Uktuma, you could even heat up other things too.
בית שמאי?
Slicha, yeah, you could do Shihiyah with other things. Lefi
So-
Chananya, if you did have Gufa Uktuma, Afilu Beit Shammai modim that you could do Shihiyah with
how-
other foods. I just want to
but
point
how
that out.
Beit
It's a
Shammai
side point.
can
Not-
agree-
I don't want to focus too much on
with
that.
Chachamim and with Chananya. They have to be
It's
to agree on one
the
shita.
other way, is that Chananya and Chachamim fit into Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. It goes the other way. That's really what we're doing.
It's before or after?
The way it seems to me, at least, is that we're trying to fit Chachamim and Chananya into Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. That's
Oh.
you understand? We're trying to fit Chachamim and Chananya into Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel.
Shita.
That's what we're trying to do, because this is the Mishnah. They have to fit back into the Mishnah. That's what we're trying to do here. Okay. And then the third step in the Mishnah, C, we had another machloket Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Now let's go with the Chachamim first. Now there's a new discussion. Until now we only talked about Shihiyah. But now, Legabe Chazara, we have a machloket. What about Chazara?
Okay.
So, but what are we talking about? Chazara with Grufa Uktuma. In Gufa Ktuma. So we say like this. Beit Shammai says it's Bichlal Asur. Beit Shammai says Bichlal you can't do Chazara. Asur. I'm just going to write Asur. And Beit Hillel says
מותר.
Mutar.
גם
כן.
תבשיל וגם
לגמרי. If you have Gufa Ktuma you can do Chazara.
חנניה.
Easy, straight.
חנניה בטח אין בעיה.
Now Chananya, how did he learn? He learns
Mine
it's going
base.
back on the A. C is going back on A, which means Chazara. We said over there for Chazara you can use Gufa
So basically,
Uktuma.
Chazara here is there is no need
Chazara.
in step
We're
3.
gonna put in Gufa Uktuma. So again, Beit Shammai says asur. This actually it's similar. Right? You see that's the same. And Beit Hillel says mutar, meaning it's actually because that actually comes out the same. Both Chachamim and Chananya agree that with Chazara there is a machloket like this, right? There is
not
a
agree
machloket.
that you can do Chazara.
With
Chazara.
With mine for Beit Shammai.
No, forget about. You're right. What you're saying, but meaning bichlal according. No. Yeah, right, exactly. Lefi. 1 second.
Lefi Beit Shammai, according to Chananya, they can do Chazara with mine.
No.
They cannot?
You cannot. You cannot.
לא יחזיר עד שיגרוף.
סליחה, maybe you're right. No, 1 second. Maybe you're right, actually.
במים משים, אוקיי. זה היה חזרה לעבודה.
I hear what you're saying. I think maybe you're right, Taka.
בית שמאי אומרים
No, Chazara is asur. Chazara is asur. Chazara is asur.
ברוך השם that we're doing the Chazara because I wouldn't
Yeah, I believe Chazara is asur. Meaning the only heter would be like Beit Hillel, not like Beit Shammai. And Chananya follows Beit Hillel. Fine. Chananya follows Beit Hillel. Exactly. No problem.
Chazara, it's asur.
Lefi Beit Shammai, it's asur. Chazara is asur.
But how they allow to, if they allow to do Chazara for Tafshil, they even not allowed to do Chazara in mine.
They're not talking, this is not talking about Chazara. Shia is more lenient.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point, exactly. Good? Shia is more lenient. We already spoke about that because you have another issue of Mitzik and Nevasha. It looks more like a... Fine. Okay, Chevra, are we good? So we have it all clear now. Everything's clear. Now we go on. Now, this was how we explained. Should we run through it one more time just to be clear? According to Chachamim, the Reisha is time at Shia. Okay, you need Gufa Ktuma. Then you have a Machloket within Shia. If you have Gufa Ktuma, that Beit Shammai says you can only use that leniency for water. Beit Hillel says even for other foods. And then the Seifa, the C, the last part is a Machloket if this also applies to Chazara. Yeah.
תסתכל בעוד 2 דפים קדימה. This is the...
Yeah. Don't look at that yet, because we're going to get to a Mariner review that it's really what gets to not complicated. Okay. That's why I'm going through this now. I want to see. So in terms of Chazara, with Gufa Ktuma, that's a machloket. It means Beit Shammai says Chazara is asur, Beit Hillel says it's mutar. So according to the Chachamim, basically what comes out is, Beit Hillel's opinion is both for Shehiyah and Chazara. If you have Gufa Ktuma, it's mutar. And Chachamim hold like Beit Hillel. Beautiful. Chananya says that regarding Chazara, that's the beginning of the Mishnah, you need Gufa Ktuma. Mashma, Shehiyah does not require Gufa Ktuma. This is the Shita of Chananya. In regards to that diuk, when is it that Shehiyah does not require Gufa Ktuma? That's for Mayim or for Tavshil, the Machloket Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel.
Chazara is the same.
And Chazara, 1 second, Chazara with Gufa Ktuma, I mean going back on the Reisha, Beit Shammai says Chazara is Bichlal Asur, and Beit Hillel says Chazara with Gufa Ktuma is Mutar.
So
which means it comes out that Beit Hillel's opinion is for Chazara you need Gufa Ktuma, for Shehiyah you don't need anything, it's fine, and again, Chananya paskins like Beit Hillel. Okay, so now we're trying to figure, that's how we fit the Mishnah. Now, we're trying to prove now another proof if our Mishnah follows Chananya or Chachamim. Tashma, about 12 lines down, Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. Tashma. Says the Gemara, let's bring a proof. The Amar Rabbi Chelbo, Amar Rav Chama bar Gorya, Amar Rav. So it was said in the name of Rav the following. Now this is a bit of an unclear statement, so we're going to have to explain it. Lo Shanu means this Mishnah was only taught, so we're being Magdir the Mishnah, we're categorizing the Mishnah. We're going to assume that we're talking about the Reisha for now, the beginning of the Mishnah. Lo Shanu Ela al Gaba. The only allowance, it's only mutar if you're putting the food on top of the oven. Avaletocha asur.
What's the difference?
But if you're putting it inside the oven, it's asur. Now, what are we talking about here? So let's look at it like this. Let's assume we're talking about this first part of the Mishnah, A over here. Okay, so let's just speak this out. The first part of the Mishnah says as follows. Let's go with Chananya first, because this one we're going to say makes more sense. You're doing Chazara, you need Gufa Ktuma. Mashma, if it's Shia, you don't need Gufa Ktuma. So what the Gemara is going to say is like this. I could understand what Rav's saying, Lefi Chananya. Why? Because why is it that Shia does not require Gufa Ktuma? Because Shia means leaving it before Shabbat, right? There's no issue. It says Rav that would only be mutar, it would only be mutar if it's on top of the oven. But if it's inside of the oven, what's the problem? So Rashi explains, very interesting. If it's inside of the oven, that means it's in the coals. It's in. Remember, Shiyah does not require Gufa Ktuma. So where is the food you're talking about? According to Chananya, you don't need Gufa Ktuma. You're leaving food in the oven. That means inside of the coals. Now, what's the problem with that?
Really? Once you take it out, you move the coil.
Not taking it. Well, that's not a problem with Chava. Let's say you're not disturbing them so much. But when
but it's
it's much more Mechzikim Mevashel. Why? Because really that's like Hatmana. That's like Hatmana. What does it mean? Well, coals is Mosif Heva. We already discussed that. So, then Rav would be saying like this. The fact that Shiyah, according to Chananya, doesn't need Gufa Ktuma, that makes sense if it's on top of the oven. Yeah. But if it's inside of the oven, that's like Hatmana. And we know if it's Mosif Hevel, you can't even set that up before Shabbat. We already learned that. So then I understand what Rav is saying. But the kasha is going to be, the Chachamim, if it's going on the first part of the Mishnah, Shiyah needs Gufa Ktuma. So what's the chiluk if it's on top or below?
If it's inside before...
What's the chiluk? There's no chiluk.
Before Shabbat, inside of the oven will cause Atmana.
No, but that point is you need Gufa Ktuma according to the Chachamim. So it means you take out the coals or you cool down the coals. So that's the kasha. Lefi the Chachamim, assuming that Rav is going on the Reisha, why is there a difference between Al Gaba or Betocha?
So maybe
Lefi Chananya, I understand there's Atmana issue. But Lefi the Chachamim, you need Gufa Ktuma for Shiyah, that's the Reisha of the Mishnah. So Ma Chiluk Ben Gaba Betocha.
Lefi Chananya, there's no problem with the coil over there?
That's the kasha. Lefi Chananya, Shiyah is mutar beli. That's the Reisha, the diuk of the Reisha.
But is Shiyah lemala or Shiyah bifnim?
That's what Rav seems to be making. Rav's making a chiluk between something on top and something below. We're assuming it's going on the Reisha. Chananya could say, I don't hold you need. I say you don't need for Shiyah Gufa Ktuma. So therefore, if you put it inside, I understand why there'd be an issue. But according to the Chachamim, you need Gufa Ktuma for Shiyah. So what's the chiluk between on top or below? Once before your question, let's read that inside.
You're talking about Shiyah, right?
Shiyah. Let's see inside. If you go like Chananya, that the first part of the Mishnah means lo yitain, means not to be machzir, and meaning you could only be machzir if you have Gufa Ktuma. And that the diuk from that is, but for Shiyah you don't need Gufa Ktuma. So hainu deshani ben tocha la al gaba. I understand why when it's inside there's this hatmana issue. It's in the coals. When it's on top, you don't have such an issue. So I can understand this logic of this psak of Rav in the shita of Chananya. But according to the Chachamim, at the beginning of the Mishnah is only talking about Shiyah. We weren't talking about Chazara. And the Mishnah was saying, to do Shiyah, you need Gufa Ktuma. So Mali Tocha, Mali Al Gaba. What's the difference if it's inside or on top? Why is there a chiluk?
If it's Garuf Katum, how there is Atmana here?
That's the kasha.
There is no,
that's exactly the kasha.
So maybe
Lefi the Chachamim, what's the chiluk between Tocha and Al Gaba?
Okay, so
that's the kasha. So Elama, the Mishnah is more mashma like Chananya. Assuming what Rav is saying is true, it's a more mashma like Chananya. Kasha and the Chachamim.
But no. But maybe there is another chiluk here. That except of the fact that it needs to be Garuf Katum. Okay, we're talking about Al Gaba Veletocha, which is inside or on top.
No.
If it's on top, it needs to be, there is no problem of Garuf Katum. And if it's inside, it needs to be Garuf Katum?
No, that's not what the Mishnah says. The Mishnah, assuming he's talking on the Reisha, it says for Shiyah you need Gufa Ktuma. So on that, Rav would be saying, but it's only a problem inside but not on top. There's no chiluk at that point.
Yeah, wait, but what is the
inside means inside, near the coals.
Yeah. No, but we said that in the Mishnah, we're not
talking about that. We're talking about the second. Because that's not everyone agrees to that. That's not a problem. We're talking about the next step where it brings in the Gufa Ktuma issue. So again, If you hold like Chananya, I understand the diuk of the first part of the Mishnah was for Shiyah you don't need Gufa Uktuma. So then so it's only mutar without Gufa Uktuma to do Shiyah if it's on top, but if it's inside, it's a Hatmana issue.
According to Chananya.
That makes sense. Rav is logical according to Chananya's view.
How
come you have to remove the coals for Shiyah? So why is it a problem to put it inside? Ela it's mashma le Chananya kasha on Chachamim. The answer the Gemara is going to say, Rav wasn't talking about the first part of the Mishnah. Rav wasn't talking about the first part of the Mishnah. He's actually talking about the third part of the Mishnah. And here, even according to the Chachamim, there is a chiluk, which is chazara. Here, inside, you're going to see, here there's actually a chiluk. Let's see this. Let's see. Answers the Gemara, Mi Savre, did you think Rabbi Chelba Reishakai? Rabbi Chelba was talking about the first part of the Mishnah, and Achinami. According to the Chachamim, in the Reisha, you put it inside or on top, there was already Gufa Uktuma, it's not a problem. That's not what Rav was talking about. Aseifa Kai, he was talking about the end of the Mishnah. What does it say at the end of the Mishnah? When we talk about Chazara, according to the Chachamim. Mi Savret. Did I skip? No, maybe I skip. Let's go back. Let's read the question again. It's only mutar if you put the pot on top of the oven, but inside the oven is asu. If you go like Chananya's pshat, and Rav is referring back to the beginning of the Mishnah, so then what Chananya holds is, for Shiyah, you don't need Gufa Uktuma. So that's why inside is Asur because there's a Hatmana issue. On top of it is Mutar. It's not a Hatmana issue. I get it. But according to the Chachamim, the Mishnah is only talking about Shiyah in the beginning. And it does require Gufa Uktuma. So Mali Tocha, Mali Al Gaba. There's no chiluk between inside it or top of it. Kasha. So the Gemara answers, Mi Savar, Rabbi Chelba Reishakai. Did you think Rabbi Chelba was talking about the first part of the Mishnah? No! The Chachamim would say, whether you're putting it on top or you're putting it inside, once you took out the coals or cooled them down, it's Bechal Mutar, it's not a problem. Aseifa Kai. Rabbi Chelba Amarav was talking about the C, the last part of the Mishnah. What did the end of the Mishnah say? Ubeit Hillel omrim af machzirin. That when you have Gufa Uktuma, Beit Hillel said, not only is Shiyah mutar, but even Chazara is mutar. On that, Rav came along and Rav said, Amar B'Chelba Mechama Goya Amar Rav, Lo shanu ela al gaba. That's where he commented. Meaning he said although Beit Hillel say Chazara is mutar if you did Gufa Uktuma, it's only mutar al gaba. But to say Chazara is mutar b'tocha, we're not going to go that far. Now why? The coals are already cooled down or taken out. Because Mechzikim Avashel, exactly. On Shabbat, you took it out. Even though it was Gufa Uktuma, the problem is to put it back inside the oven, that looks a lot more like Mechzikim Avashel. So then we could understand the Chachamim, that Geder of Rav, it makes a lot of sense on the end of the Mishnah, not a kasha on the Chachamim. So this proof is rejected. Let's move on. Now we get to the complicated proof of the day. Tashma. Let's see this inside. This is a Tosefta. Okay? Tosefta says like this. Tosefta, you have Mishnayot, you have Braitaot, and you have Tosefta. So Mishnayot is what Rabbi Yehuda Nasi gathered as like the Ikar Tanaic teachings. Braitaot is what was left out of that. And Tosefta, very interesting, is like a type of Braitaot also, but also it's Tanaim, so it has koach of Tanaim. So Tosefta says like this. If you look in the back of the Gemara, you have Tosefta actually very often. And these Gemaras don't, maybe. A lot of Gemaras do.
This one.
And a lot of them do.
In this one they don't have it.
Yeah. It's broken up similar to the Mishnayot actually. It like follows and it explains Mishnayot. Tashma.
So Tosefta is basically another Gemara, like Braita?
It's like Braitaot, exactly. It's like Braitaot. Yeah.
Okay.
But the Mishnot is the most...
is the Ikar. Tashma bet kirot amatimot. You have two double ovens that are twins. Okay, so what do you have here? Rashi explains like this. You have, a kira is a double oven. So you have two double ovens next to each other, and there's a wall between them. A wall of cheres, Rashi says.
Two
double ovens next to each other. Okay?
Okay.
And there's a wall between them. Next to each other. Two double ovens are attached with a wall separating them. But they're touching. They're right next to each other. Wall between them. Okay. Achat gufa uktuma. One of them was either cleared out the coals, or the coals were cooled down. And one, the coals were not removed or were not cooled down. Okay, so there's two ovens next to each other. They're both hot on Shabbat, let's say. One you did the proper gufa uktuma, and one you didn't. Says the Tosefta, Ma shehin al gabe gufa uktuma. You are allowed to do shehiyah on top of the oven that had gufa uktuma. Ve'en ma shehin al she'ena gufa ve'ena uktuma. And you can't do shehiyah on the oven that was not gufa uktuma. Now, by the way, I just want to point something out. Who does this already sound like, this Tosefta? Who is it mashma like? If we just stop there. Like Chachamim or Chananya? Of course. Because you see, for Shiyah, you don't need, it's Pashat mashma like the Chachamim. You see right away. Now that's not the part we're going to focus on. But the point, the chidush that we're saying over here is, two chidushim actually, it's double chidush. One is that we're not worried about the heat that's being generated from the etzem, the oven that had gufa uktuma, according to the Chachamim. One second. According to the Chachamim, the oven that had gufa uktuma, you could do shehiyah. It makes sense. You could do shehiyah. But we're not, the chidush, we're not worried, even though the other oven is also hot. The one that didn't have gufa uktuma, we're not worried about the hevel, the heat that comes from that oven. So we're not worried about that heat, and we're not worried you might accidentally use the other oven.
But there is three.
But you can use the one that had gufa uktuma done.
But there is three situations that can happen. No.
We're talking about shiyah here. That's shiyah. So
yeah. Shiyah, if it's letocha, we're talking about al gaba. So
yeah, let's leave that out for now. I don't want to get too complicated. It's not nogea right now. Let's say al gaba. It really could be betocha also, but let's just leave that out.
So there is shema echate or mechzik mevashel. How is there is atmana when it's al gaba?
It's not. Let's leave that out. I don't want to get back into that right now. It's not directly nogea. So let's just see. That's really the first part of the Braita. We'll speak more about it later. We'll see. But that's really not the ikar. So but there's a chidush. I just want to point out there's a chidush. There is. We're not worried about the heat coming from the other oven that didn't have gufa uktuma, and we're also not worried that you might accidentally use that other oven. That's the point.
Maybe as you said, it's some heat coming from the oven just being closed. Maybe it's some effect.
So we're going to get there. At the end of the sugya today, we'll talk more about the Reisha. Umahen mashin. Now follow good here. This gets technical. Now we're talking about where you did gufa uktuma. Okay, the one you did gufa uktuma. What are you allowed to do shehiyah with?
Coals.
No. What foods? Which foods?
According to Bet Shammai.
Okay, so
according to Bet
now this is a Tosefta. So listen, this isn't going to be exactly like our Mishnah. Bet Shammai omrim velo klum. Bet Shammai says afilu chamin, ma'im chamim, you can't do shiyah.
So they're machmirim here.
This is very machmir. This is Rabbi Meir's opinion, and there is very machmir. Bet Shammai holds you can't do anything for even with gufa uktuma. Shiyah is problematic. Ubeit Hillel omrim chamin avalot tavshil. Now I want to write this in as we go. This is Rabbi Meir's opinion. Rabbi Meir says like this.
He doesn't say acher here.
Rabbi Meir. No, achirim is Rabbi Meir. It's true. Rabbi Meir, let's go in this case. It's actually B. It's a natural continuum of B. So I want to just do like this, because that's really what we're going to get to. For shehiyah,
according to him, there is no shehiyah for Bet Shammai at all.
Gufa tuma, afilu, even with gufa tuma. Bet Shammai says asur legamre, and Beit Hillel says rak lemayim. Rak lemayim. And that's clearly not like. It's not like our Mishnah. It's not like our Mishnah. Okay, we see that. Okay, it's a Sefta. Okay. Let's continue in Rabbi Meir now. That's the first machloket, which is B in the Mishnah. Okay.
That's the first machloket.
Meaning it's B, really, the second thing. Okay. Part of our Mishnah. Sorry, I think I lost here. Now, a car, if he took something off of the fire on Shabbat, divrei hakol lo yachzir divrei Rabbi Meir. If he took something off the fire on Shabbat, even Beit Hillel holds you can't return it to the fire.
According to Rabbi Meir.
This is Rabbi Meir.
As no chazara.
It's asur. According to everybody, asur. Everybody sees this does not fit with our Mishnah.
Right.
According to either pshat of our Mishnah, it doesn't fit.
The only kula that we have is shiyah.
Rabbi Meir is the most machmir.
But how come it's מבעוד יום?
Rabbi Meir is the most machmir. The most machmir. Let's continue. Now, that's Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer.
עדיף לאכול סנדוויץ'.
Yeah. Yehuda Omer. Beit Shammai omrim for Shia with Gufa Uktuma. Beit Shammai say Chamin Avalot Tavshil. Now this should sound familiar to you.
Right.
That you can do Shia with Gufa Uktuma if it's hot water but not a dish. Ubeit Hillel omrim Chamin v'Tavshil. That should sound familiar.
Sounds like.
Why does that sound familiar?
But גרוף וכתום? That sounds like חכמים.
Exactly. Shia with Gufa Uktuma. Let's just put like this, the same thing. And here, Beit Shammai says Mayim. Beit Hillel says Afilu Tavshil. Now this, what does that sound like?
חכמים.
Well, it sounds, beautiful, excellent. That sounds like the Chachamim's pshat in our Mishnah. Beautiful, excellent. Exactly like the Chachamim learned the Mishnah. Let's continue. That's the B. Now let's go to C. What about Chazara? Beit Shammai omrim notlin avalo machzirin. In terms of Chazara, Beit Shammai say Asur. Chazara is Asur. And Beit Hillel omrim af machzirin. Mutar.
So it's
Now
the
again,
same thing like
Now look, Chevra.
חכמים.
That's the end of the Tosefta. Okay? Now let's speak this out outside and then we'll see how the Gemara analyzes this. We have in the Tosefta two shitot about the machloket Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. The two machloket Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel.
So the whole מחלוקת
Just
is
one second,
about
one second.
Shia.
Hello, 1 second. We want to try to say that our Mishnah fits with one of these two Tanaim. Because to say that there's a Mishnah
למה
that we
two
don't... Rabbi Meir or Rabbi Yehuda?
זה חנניה לא?
Like this. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir are great Tanaim. So if we want to say that there's a Mishnah, we're going to try to say, Mistama, it fits within one of the Tanaim, Rabbi Meir or Rabbi Yehuda. It's okay, it's okay.
It's killing me.
Because to say that it's a third Tana that we don't know about becomes problematic. It's a chidush to say that. So therefore, what we're going to try to say is, logically it must be that our Mishnah is explained either like Rabbi Meir or like Rabbi Yehuda.
Which they are big enough to...
Sounds like Rabbi Yehuda.
Yeah, no. Well, what sounds like Rabbi Yehuda?
The same pshita of Rabbi Yehuda is like what Chachamim say.
So the Chachamim's explanation of our Mishnah fits beautifully like the Tana Rabbi Yehuda. But who doesn't fit very beautifully?
Rabbi Meir.
Chananya doesn't fit very beautifully.
Why have to fit
Chachamim will
Chananya?
come along and they'll say, we explain our Mishnah exactly like the Tana
Why
Rabbi
have to
Yehuda.
fit Chananya?
Because Chananya, he would also want, this is what the logic of the Gemara is, he wants to find, there must be a Tana in Shas. If the Tosefta quotes only two Tanaim, Mistama, those are the two major Tanaim on the issue. So to make up that we explain, Chananya is a Tana, but to explain the Mishnah, not like any previous Tana, it's a chidush to say such a thing. It's not so simple. See, maybe we'll get stuck into that. But we'd rather explain the Mishnah based on a previous Tana who explained it. Maybe it's in a Tosefta somewhere else. So the Chachamim are going to come along and they're going to say, beautiful. We explained our Mishnah exactly like Rabbi Yehuda understands the Mishnah. The problem is, Chananya's way of explaining the Mishnah, it doesn't fit either like Rabbi Meir or like Rabbi Yehuda. Now let's just speak out why that is. Let's go through. First, let's explain the Chachamim. Chachamim explained that regarding Shehiyah, with Grufa and Ktuma, Beit Shammai says you can only use for water, and Beit Hillel said Afilu Tavshil. That's exactly how Rabbi Yehuda explained the Machloket.
Right.
And the third step of the Mishnah for Chazara with Grufa and Ktuma.
Also Chananya is the same thing. Like Rabbi Yehuda.
1 second. It's not.
Lama?
No, I'll tell you in a minute. It's Ma Mishnah. You have to see. That's why I wanted to write it out so we could put it together. For Chazara, according to the Chachamim, with Gufa or Ktuma, Beit Shammai says Chazara is Asur, Beit Hillel says Chazara is Mutar. Chachamim will say our Mishnah fits beautifully with Rabbi Yehuda's explanation. So Chachamim will say the Tana of our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. Beautiful, wonderful. You find the source. The problem is like this. Let's look at Chananya. Can Chananya explain our Mishnah like Rabbi Meir?
No.
Like Rabbi Meir? V'vadai shelo. Now why not? Let's speak out why. Because according to Rabbi Meir, the Machloket Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel is Shiyah without Gufa Uktuma. Now that's the same, by the way.
Belo ze'im.
Ze'im is a bli.
No, bli, slicha, bli anim, exactly. And also the other issue is, meaning with Shiyah you have a problem that doesn't match up. it doesn't match up. Now, by the way, in terms of Chazara,
it's the same thing.
it's not the same thing.
Lama?
Because Rabbi Meir says
Asur,
both Beit Shammai and Beit
asur,
Hillel hold it's
asur.
asur to do Chazara.
Chananya, I'm saying Chananya like Rabbi Yehuda.
It's like, but everybody sees why Chananya cannot fit like Rabbi Meir.
Right.
It doesn't fit on two accounts. It doesn't fit with Shiyah or with Chazara.
Right.
What about Rabbi Yehuda? Now, actually,
Ma.
can Chananya explain our Mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda?
In regards to Chazara, yes.
In regards to
Shiyah.
Chazara,
Yes.
he could.
Shia.
But before that, with Chazara, he actually could, because he explained the Machloket exactly like Rabbi Yehuda explains the Machloket.
But what about Shia?
What about Shiyah?
But Shia is mibod yom.
1 second. What about Shihiyah? So he says, if you're dealing with Shihiyah
Letocha or al gaba.
with Gufa Uktuma, Beit Shammai holds that you can use Mayim, and Beit Hillel holds even Tavshil. Is that how Chananya explained the Mishnah?
Ken.
Shihiyah Beli.
Believe.
Beli Gufa
Umerim,
Uktuma.
ורבי
umerim.
יהודה אומר,
Which
מה רבי
means
יהודה אומר?
Chananya explained the Machloket, Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel is in the case of no Gufa
But
Uktuma.
מה רבי יהודה עושה?
כל
Rabbi Yehuda
המחלוקת
said
היא על
it's
השהייה פה.
with Gufa
זה לא
Uktuma.
מסתדר.
The whole מחלוקת זה about
זה לא
השהייה.
מסתדר.
So let's just speak that out. What comes out is Chananya cannot explain the Mishnah like Rabbi Meir because of Shia and Chazara, two problems.
And in regards
And Rabbi Yehuda can't explain the
Shia.
Mishnah because of one problem,
Shia.
which is Shihiyah. So it comes out, Chananya, he's stuck in no man's land. It's good to have people on your side. You want to be a Shita and Shas, it's good to have other Tanaim that back you up. Chachamim could say, beautiful, our Mishnah fits like a big Tana, Rabbi Yehuda. We spoke about Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Meir, fine, Rabbi Yehuda. But Chananya isn't able to explain this Mishnah with either of the two Shitot in the Tosefta. Let's read that inside now.
But I only don't understand.
Yeah, but
one
before
thing.
you question, I just want to let's read the question now inside the way, because I just spoke, but I want to see how the Gemara reads it inside. Says the Gemara. I Amrit, it's about 10 lines from the wide lines.
Shlama.
I Amrit bishlama lishahot tanan. If you learn the Mishnah like the Chachamim, the beginning of the Mishnah is talking about Shiyah. So matnitin mani Rabbi Yehuda. Here our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yehuda, and he explains the Machloket exactly like Rabbi Yehuda. Chachamim. Elai Amrit lachzir tanan. But if the Mishnah lo yiten means Chazara, which is like Chananya, that's how Chananya explains the Mishnah. So matnitin mani. Who is the author of our Mishnah? Lo Rabbi Yehuda velo Rabbi Meir. It's not like Rabbi Yehuda, and it's not like Rabbi Meir. Because Rabbi Meir, if Chananya would explain the Mishnah like Rabbi Meir, as we explain, Kashya lebeit Shammai bechada, it becomes difficult according to Beit Shammai on one issue. What's the one issue? It means Beit Shammai, he's explaining Shihiyah. Rabbi Meir explains that the issue of Shihiyah, according to Beit Shammai, it's completely asur. According to Chananya, Shihiyah is mutar for
Bet Shammai.
Beit Shammai with Mayim. So it doesn't work out in terms of Shihiyah. Or the Beit Hillel betarti, and it's actually difficult in Beit Hillel on two accounts. Because in regards to Shihiyah, according to Rabbi Meir, it's only mutar for Mayim, and Chazara bechlal is asur according to Beit Hillel. Whereas Chananya explained that Beit Hillel holds
Mutar,
Shihiyah is mutar
Tavshil.
betavshil also, and Chazara is
Mutar,
mutar bechlal. So it comes out that both for Shihiyah and Chazara, there's a kasha.
Mismatch.
Doesn't work. And Rabbi Yehuda, and if you say that Chananya will explain the Mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda, which actually works for Chazara, that could actually work. Problem is, Kashya Gufo Ktuma, it becomes difficult regarding Gufo Ktuma, means the way he explained it is that Chananya explained the Machloket by Shia is without Gufo Ktuma. Rabbi Yehuda explained the Machloket Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel for Shihiyah is with Gufo Ktuma. So it comes out that it doesn't work with the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda either.
Lama, but the only thing that they have a difference is just the Shia. The only difference between Rabbi Yehuda and Chananya is the Shia itself.
If it's with Gufa Ktuma or not Gufa
Big
Ktuma.
difference.
In regards to Chazara, they are Moskim on the same thing.
Yeah.
They agree.
Yeah.
Okay? And
Yeah.
the difference for the Shia is big Gufa Ktuma or im Gufa Ktuma.
Exactly.
Now remember one thing, the Shia itself, okay, is Mebe'od Yom. It's from...
Correct.
It's on Friday.
Correct.
So, maybe on one thing they disagree with him.
Ah, beautiful. So the Gemara says a little bit of a dochek because really we would like to explain the Mishnah legame like one Tana, but we're forced into a corner. So Chananya turns to us and he says the following. Really, he could tell us the following. Lachzir Tanan. Like we learned our Mishnah, it's Chazara, the whole explanation that we said in Chananya. V'Tana Didan, the author of our Mishnah, Savar lak Rabbi Yehuda bechada. He holds like Rabbi Yehuda partially. Upaligale bechada.
איפה פליגלה בחדה?
Hold on. And he argues on him in one way. Savar lak Rabbi Yehuda bechada. He agrees with Rabbi Yehuda in one regard, which is Bechamin v'tavshil v'notlinu machzirin. Now, these are two different parts. In regards to Chamin and Tavshil, that actually works out beautiful. Is that Beit Shammai holds Mayim, Beit Hillel holds Tavshil, Beit Shammai holds Mayim, Beit Hillel holds Tavshil. Yeah. Okay. And in regards to the sea, the last part, Chazara, it works out beautiful as well. The only thing is, Upale Galei Bechada, the Ilu Tana Didan Savar Lishahot, Va'af al Pi She'eno Garuf V'Katum, that Chananya explains the Mishnah is, Shiyah is without Gufa Ktuma. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, B'Lishahot Nami Garuf V'Katum in, it's only mutar for Gufa Ktuma, means the discussion is only that Shiyah is mutar asu with Gufa Ktuma, if you did Gufa Ktuma. Lo, but if not, not. So meaning it comes out that Chananya is essentially forced into the corner to say, I could have like Rabbi Yehuda, there's just a little difference, which is the Shiyah discussing the Machlokit with Gufa Ktuma or without Gufa Ktuma?
To be honest, it sounds like the right way that we're doing today.
Oh, so actually, okay, so it's very interesting. That's the end of the Sugya, Chevra. That's the end. We tried to bring proofs, 3 proofs, we rejected all of the proofs. Tosfot, Rashi, and other Rishonim paskin like Chananya, I believe. Like Chananya. Tosfot says very clearly, the top Tosfot on the page, Mishum de Kaimalan ke Chananya, because we paskin like Chananya, like he'll explain, Dachik le'ukma matnitin kavate. You see, why is the Gemara going in circles and loopholes to try to figure out the top of the page? Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph, the top of the page. Because we paskin like Chananya, the Gemara pushes itself to try to fit the Mishnah like him. That's what Tosfot says. Usually the Mishnah is more logical, it reads better like the Chachamim. So why are you going through these, like, pushing it in a strange... So Tosfot says, because we paskin like Chananya. So Tosfot says, other Rishonim, I believe the Rambam included, paskin like Chachamim. And it's a big nafkamina, obviously. Well, the Chachamim explained our Mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda, exactly.
I don't understand.
Yeah, it's a major machloket Rishonim. Do we paskin like Chananya or like Chizkiah or like Chachamim? And it's actually Arayom. There's a machloket in the poskin, even if we paskin like Chananya or like the Chachamim.
But there is also chiluk between Chananya and Rabbi Yehuda in regard to Tmana, because al tochalek otocha or al gaba. Because if it's the al gaba, bli kufa uktuma, I can understand it. אבל לתוכה, maybe sounds like more like Rabbi Yehuda. You need גירוף וכתום because then it's going to cause התמנה.
That's an interesting question. I did not think about it.
לא, אתה מבין מה אני אומר?
לא הבנתי. לא הבנתי קודם כל את ה... אם זה לפי חנניה אנחנו פוסקים?
כן.
יש מחלוקת בראשונים, אם אנחנו פוסקים כמו חנניה או כמו חכמים.
זה לא גאור וכתום, זה לא מסתכל.
אז למעשה, תכלס, אם אתה סובר כמו חנניה, אתה צריך לעשות גופה או כתומה רק לחזרה. אבל לשהייה, לא צריך.
לא, לשהייה. שהייה זה השונה.
אבל לשהייה לא צריך. אם אתה סובר כחכמים, לשתיהם אתה צריך גופה או כתומה. אז יש מחלוקת בפוסקים עד היום, איך אנחנו סוברים.
אז באמת המשנה זה לפי רבי חנניה.
לא, אז בסוף אנחנו יכולים להסביר את המשנה בין לחכמים ואפילו גם כחנניה. רק תוספות אומר that the reason the Gemara goes through the exercise here to fit the Mishnah like Chananya where it's not mistaber actually, it's not so logical, is because tachlis we paskin like Chananya, which is a fascinating thing, you find that sometimes, is that the etzem, the Mishnah reads better like the Chachamim, but since Tosfot says practically we paskin like Chananya, so we want to show how the Mishnah could fit like Chananya too. That's what Tosfot is saying. We find this sometimes very interesting. The Gemara will do this. It goes through the whole process to try...
But it fit better...
Like Chachamim, exactly.
I don't understand that.
למה?
Because in psak, that's how Tosfot says.
על גבה או לתוכה?
It's תכניס, הלכה למעשה.
אם אתה שם את זה על גבה, מה הבעיה בגרוף וכתום? אם אתה שם על הגב,
כן. לא, יש שתי בעיות.
זה יום שישי, זה לא שבת בכלל.
שמי יחטא בגחלים, that's the problem there. We spoke about it, the issues. That's the whole issue. No, that's not necessarily so problematic by Shia. But by Shia, Shemi Yechateh.
But the question is, when you're going to do it in Friday? Samuch LeShabbat or earlier?
The point is, if there's an issue of Shemi Yechateh, even putting it on top, it could potentially be an issue. That's the problem. I wanted to do it a little more today. I don't know if
הלכה למעשה, אבל I have to go, unfortunately.
Yeah.
אבל הלכה למעשה,
Oh,
no.
mamish 10:50.
הלכה למעשה, if you're talking about Chananya, if we're talking about שהייה לתוכה, I understand the concept of mikse כמבשל, and then atmana, and then shema echate if there is no garuf ekatum. So then I follow like Rabbi Yehuda, because it makes more sense, because you can fall in between some obstacle. But if it's al gaba shel akira, it's Friday. Ma הבעיה?
Again, shemi yechateh. The problem is, no,
אין פה atmana.
on Shabbat, shemi yechateh. So you have to set it up in a way that you don't do shemi yechateh. How do you do it? Take the coals out.
But today, I'm trying to...
Today we don't really have coals.
Today
So what
really
do?
don't do it.
We cover the knob, or we cover with a blech.
But
we
we're
do
also
something.
cooking Friday.
The cooking is not a problem at all. The issue is it's going to go into Shabbat with that, and it can cause you to turn the knob or to raise the heat, something like that. So we do something which is similar to Gufa or Ktuma as a preventative
Blech.
that you're not going to be Yechateh.
The blech.
Which is blech, or covered with tin foil or something of that nature. That's exactly, by the way, that's where this all comes from.
I never heard some things like that really it's fitting perfectly according to Chachamim.
Yeah.
And we try to
sometimes it comes out like
up
that.
and down to
Exactly.
fit the halal. It doesn't fit exactly like
It
Chananya.
doesn't fit
And
as well.
still,
Exactly.
what's the...
Because Tosfot says in Psak, sometimes Psak you have all of Shas, you have Mikorot, you have sources, proofs, etc. And this is how the Chachamim came out. Problem is our Mishnah doesn't fit so good like that. So Gemara wants to explain that's the way it goes. Very interesting. We'll stop here. We're going to have to stop here. It's overtime. But slicha that we started a little late today. V'ezrat Hashem.